Labdien!
Dear ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the joint press conference of the Baltic Foreign Ministers and Foreign Minister of Canada. Working languages are Latvian and English with simultaneous interpretation available. Please do use the headsets for the simultaneous interpretation. We are also being live streamed, and we'll start with the statement of Latvian Foreign Minister Madam Baiba, Braže. It is a true pleasure and delight for me to welcome to the Canadian Foreign Minister today in Riga, Latvia. Canada, of course, being the largest supporter of Latvia in recent years, and with whom I actually met in 2021 right here in Riga with Madame Joly, and I was then working for NATO, and also we were meeting because of the NATO troops here in Latvia, and today, of course, we started our visit, or today's meeting, by meeting with the Canadian troops and presenting them awards for the outstanding service. And of course, we also had the traditional 3+1 meeting between the Baltic foreign ministers and Canadian foreign minister. I'm very happy to welcome my dear friend Margus Tsahkna from Tallinn, who has made quite a distance to get here, and of course also the vice minister from Lithuania. Our meeting today mostly focused on issues around security, and we will go to the NATO ministerial tomorrow to take part in the meeting, which will talk about stronger NATO, more united NATO, NATO that is capable of deterring and preventing all types of threats, about our defense investment. We are going to talk about also tomorrow. We also talked a lot about transatlantic relations. We also talked about threats coming from Russia and Russia's violent policy of war, and there's no illusion that this policy would change in coming years. And of course, we discussed support to Ukraine, and we naturally also talked about different international challenges like pressure coming from China, pressure against a number of countries. We talked about our relationship with global countries, international engagement, and many other issues. And now it's my honor to turn the floor to my colleague, Madame Joly, from the Canadian Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Merci Baiba. Permettez-moi bien entendu.
Thank you very much. I would like to start by thanking the Latvian Foreign Affairs Ministry for the cordial welcome and hospitality. Thank you indeed. And we have been speaking English already, and I'll continue. Sorry, we've been talking French, and I'll continue in French. I'm very happy to be here. I would like to thank the Estonian and Lithuanian minister, as well as our host, for a wonderful, constructive dialogue and a very insightful meeting. As Madame Braže already mentioned, we met with NATO troops today, and it was a very interesting moment for all of us, filled with a lot of pride, and we thank them for the service that they are doing. And I would like to thank Latvia indeed for the warm hospitality and also host nation support provided to the Canadian troops. I would like to also thank Latvia for the support of the Resolute Warrior operation, or mission in scope of which Canada led training, which wouldn't have been possible without your support. It was the first training exercise of this scale led by Canada, which is of course the framework nation for the multinational brigade here in Latvia, and it was the largest exercise in the last 3 decades here in Europe, and it was the way for Canada to show its commitment to the security of Latvia and the whole alliance. Since the full-scale invasion of Russia in Ukraine, our presence here has been gradually increasing. And to those Latvians who are watching us, I would like to say that we are here to stay.
New embassies in Lithuania and
we are also working towards greater presence in Lithuania, Estonia, as much as we are doing the same here in Latvia. We are fully committed to solidarity with our Baltic friends and other NATO allies. We are also happy that Canada, within its mission Unify, is also able to train Ukrainian troops here in Latvia. We, of course, also reiterated our support to Ukraine. We agreed that we are as united as ever in our support to Ukraine. As Madam Braže already mentioned, we discussed various challenges and various current issues. We talked a lot about various geopolitical issues. And now the floor is given to the Estonian parliament.
Speak French. But Baiba, thank you very much for hosting us here, and I had really very far away to come to Riga, but actually we continue with the NATO Foreign Ministers meeting, and it was very useful discussion today amongst different topics, what we are so like-minded. And Mélanie, thank you for coming here to Baltic States. And of course Canada is playing a crucial role in our collective defense and in the security of Baltic region, and also as a frame country here in Latvia, you're protecting, and your soldiers, your people, you're protecting us all. So we understand how important it is, and also to feel the situation on the bordering of Russia. But we need to understand as well that Russia is waging already close to 3 years the aggression against Ukraine, and we discussed how can we support Ukraine. We need to give the military support, we need to give humanitarian support, we need to invest in Ukraine, we need to support Ukrainians to win the war and to survive the winter as well. And we understand that there cannot be any kind of peace processes without Ukraine, because they are fighting for their own freedom, but also they are fighting for our freedom, but also we understand as a Baltic states as well, they are fighting instead of us. Though we need to understand that this kind of support is very important. And additionally, we discussed as well the global security, and the North Korean troops fighting just a couple of hundreds of kilometers from the NATO border is something that Putin has changed the course of this aggression, in a meaning that it is not anymore the aggression from Russia against the Ukraine, but also it's global. So we see that this part of the world, as North Korea and many other proxies, are connected to. And of course we discussed as well the transatlantic relations, the Baltic region as well, with the cooperation of Canada, but also in frame of NATO, but also transatlantic relations with the United States, as we know that new president will enter to office the beginning of the next year. So we had many of these topics to discuss, but also there is a need to increase the defense investments, defense spendings, and tomorrow and day after we are going to discuss amongst the foreign minister of NATO as well the Hague summit next year. And one topic is of course that we need to increase the defense spendings, and the Estonian proposal is 2.5% minimum for everybody. But yeah, I think that I cannot name all the topics what we have discussed because we are so like-minded that, but the fact that this meeting happened is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the floor is given to the Deputy Foreign Affairs Minister of Lithuania, Egidijus Meilūnas.
Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to express our gratitude to Latvian Foreign Minister, Excellency Baiba Braže, for your warm hospitality. And we appreciate this third Baltic-Canada meeting as a very important part of our partnership of free Baltic states with Canada. And let me take this opportunity to share some comments on the topics we discussed earlier today. So first, strong transatlantic bond is our common interest, especially in the face of long-lasting Russia's brutal aggression against Ukraine and genocidal war against Ukraine, and also destructive behaviors of other authoritarian regimes against the democratic world. And only by working together in unity with our transatlantic partners, we can protect the rules-based international order. In this regard, we highly value close partnership and friendship with Canada, its substantial contribution to the security of the Baltic region, continued support to Ukraine, including leadership in the international coalition of the return of Ukrainian children. In this regard, I would like to inform you that we joined the Canadian initiative of the Safe Pathways Home and will contribute to joint efforts to help Ukrainian rescued from Russian captivity to return home safely. Increased military, financial and humanitarian support to Ukraine remains our top priority. Ukraine's victory is crucial for Euro-Atlantic security. If Ukraine fails or it's forced to sign a coerced peace agreement, it will be a loss for all of us. It will be a loss globally because it would and will encourage other authoritarian regimes to behave even aggressively in other regions of the world. The transatlantic strength is now being challenged every day by Russia, China, Iran, North Korea axis. This axis crossed all red lines, military supporting aggressor, with a permanent seat at United Nations Security Council. As a result, Russia enjoys immunity, continues waging war in Europe, obliterating Ukraine. China poses increasing multi-domain threats to European security and is becoming more assertive in the Indo-Pacific region. Latest instances, Chinese-flagged cargo is suspected in damaging 2 undersea fiber cables in the Baltic Sea. And just a few words about Russia's hybrid attacks, which continue unchecked on Euro-Atlantic territory. It should not become new normal. Russian operatives must be deterred. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear speakers. We'll now open the floor for questions. When you ask a question, please introduce yourself and to whom you would like to address the question, please.
Again. I just wanted to ask you again specifically about Georgia and events that transpired over the last, 4 days. And the Kremlin, Russia is trying to frame it as another Maidan, saying that it's going down a dark path. So how do you think the EU and the EU's allies, Canada and the US, should respond?
So I'll let the EU members respond themselves, but what I can tell you though is Canada is in solidarity with the Georgian people, and we are very concerned about what Russia is trying to do in Georgia, and in that sense we will follow suit. We will sanction key individuals and also businesses, entities that are involved in either human rights violations or corruption based on our own sanctions regime. And so you will have more from me in the coming days regarding this issue.
As for us, we have had extensive consultations among the Baltic foreign ministers on both the assessment of the situation and the measures that we can take. And also within the EU, you saw a strong statement published yesterday by the High Representative, endorsed by the EU states. So quite clearly, the future of Georgia that Georgian people stand for in accordance with the overall assessment is European future. And we see that also from this expression of popular will that should be guaranteed by the fundamental right of freedom of assembly and expression. And we deeply regret the Georgian government decision to announce that they will not pursue that path until 28, despite the EU constantly saying that the door is open and it's up to the Georgian government to implement the reforms and follow that path that people support. Also, in the current situation, obviously, suppression of those protests, hundreds of arrests, the violence, is something that we cannot keep silent. So we will take measures to make sure that perpetrators are affected.
Adding a bit as well that I think it's pretty sure that we cannot call these elections, they were in Georgia honest and everything what we used to have in democracies, and also everything what we see from the streets now, the using of power against demonstrations and peaceful people who has a right to actually speak out. This is not a part what can we see as well as a member state of European Union, and it's a pity that the leading political party has decided not to follow the Georgian people's will, but deciding to turn away from the European Union way. And it has been written in as well to the Georgian constitution. So this is a much more deeper question. It's not only about what EU is doing, but actually what is Georgia is doing, what the Georgian people are doing. So we are in a very clear position to support Georgian people's right to speak out, to be a part of democracies. And also, as Baiba mentioned, we have decided as a three Baltic countries to run the sanctions against the persons who are responsible for the violence against the people not following humanitarian laws. And I do hope that, and today will be the listed names as well public. Already you can see as well who we put under the sanctions. But also I do hope, and we will raise these kind of questions as well on the European Union level, because we have made decisions from European Union side already years ago to support the Georgian way as agreed towards European Union, but this political party has decided to turn totally the other direction. So I'm deeply concerned that the Georgian people's will is not represented.
Latvijas žurnālistiem es gribētu arī.
To Latvian journalists, I would like to also make an announcement in Latvian. I would like to specifically reiterate in Latvian that since the end of last week, we'd been discussing on a ministerial level, on a ministry level, and on diplomatic level, we'd been very actively discussing what our response should be or reaction should be, because, of course, there's domestic processes in Georgia, people's will and vote. But then there is also Georgia's path that we have supported and still continue to support. And, of course, Georgian people have the right to appeal against decisions that have been made by the ruling party, one of the ruling parties in Georgia, which has decided, in fact, to discontinue the negotiations, accession negotiations with the EU, and they are actively using disinformation, misinformation, various fake news, and so on and so forth to dissuade its people, which has resulted, of course, in mass protests, and it's the fundamental right of the Georgian population to protest, like in Latvia, and government suppressing such protests are unacceptable. And there have been precedents also in Belarus where those protests were suppressed and people were sanctions. There were personal sanctions about violence. Sometimes we publish those names, well, we disclose those names, sometimes we don't. It's our sovereign decision, and in this case, whenever we have the list, we will decide when and how to disclose those lists. But there is at least a political consensus that there will be a list of sanctioned individuals. Would the Lithuanian representative like to also?
Thank you very much. Very briefly, so speaking about list, it was already mentioned. So our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Gabrielius Landsbergis, already a few minutes ago, posted on, please check his Twitter account, a list of the representatives of Georgian authorities who were denied entry to the territory of Lithuania because of abuse of human rights in Georgia. And last but not least, we fully support European aspirations of Georgian people.
Paldies, vai vēl ir jautājumi?
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Good afternoon, Insulting from the Latvian television. I would like to ask about the sanction lists. Do Baltic countries coordinate those names or those lists? Because Lithuania has already published its list with travel bans, and I would like to also ask about Ukraine. President Zelensky has mentioned or announced that NATO could support Ukrainian troops in some of the regions in Ukraine to somehow reduce the level of the conflict. And to Lithuanian representative, I would like to ask the question. China has said that it will respond to the extradition of the Chinese diplomats. What kind of response are you going to exert? As regards to Ukraine's path to NATO and presence of allied forces or support to Ukraine on bilateral level and multilateral level, and how to deter Russia, we are going to talk during the ministerial. We will have a specific session which will be focusing on the preparation for the Hague summit, during which we are going to talk about containment policy towards Russia and how to minimize Russia's impact. Russia's hybrid attacks are also being very closely monitored. Our cyber incident entities and agencies are working hard to make sure that the hybrid attacks from Russia are being contained and are being deterred, and countries are exchanging information very actively and cooperating in these matters. So we're not just letting Russia do whatever it wants in various NATO member states. That's absolutely not the case. And then we'll have a separate session with Ukraine, NATO-Ukraine Council, during which we will talk to Ukrainian Foreign Minister. We will have a very open, very frank discussion, as we always do. I don't want to make any predictions about the agenda. Baltic countries have clearly stated that we support inviting Ukraine to EU and NATO, and we will expect them to start the accession process as soon as they have resolved various issues and ensured the necessary compatibility. As regards to the peace process or ceasefire, well, it depends on Ukraine and what it expects. It should lead the negotiations and should lead the process. We cannot impose this upon Ukraine, but we have to be very open as ministers discussing this and how to move this issue forward. And as regards to sanctions lists, I think that the Latvian media are very well aware and quite used to those lists being compiled, and they know that a decision-making process sometimes is public and sometimes it's confidential. So specific names and specific activities and their influence on the processes will be evaluated very carefully, and this time around there's a lot of intelligence information being exchanged between the parties, between the countries, so it's all confidential at the moment. And those lists might not be identical between the countries. There might be countries that are including more people in this travel ban list, and there are countries that choose to include less names. So it will depend on specific decisions of the countries. We do have the consultation, but the decision remains with each country individually.
Regarding your three questions, so the first one on sanctions, I think my colleagues can answer. Regarding your second question about Ukraine and its invitation to join NATO, you asked me a question earlier today about this. It's Canada's position that Ukraine should be part of NATO when conditions allow, and we believe that it is the ultimate security guarantee that can be offered to Ukraine. And regarding your third question, which was linked to Chinese diplomats, what I can tell you regarding China per se, it is Canada's position, and I think it's North America's position, that there is a clear link between what is happening in the Indo-Pacific and what is happening in Ukraine and the European theater. And we should not be seeing these two regions of the world not interconnected. They are. We're seeing it because of the DPRK's troops also joining Russian forces in order to support Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. We're seeing also through the economic enabling by China of Russia's war in Ukraine. And so definitely this is something we had the chance to talk about, and I really hope we can work with our European allies to do more to make sure ultimately that we send a strong message to China.
Answering the question about Ukraine is we need to focus on supporting Ukraine right now. Every day, every week, giving military support, investing the infrastructure, helping to survive Ukrainians people this winter. And also we need to work hard to give working security guarantees. We can talk boots on the ground, not boots on the ground, but be honest, the only working security guarantee is the membership of NATO. We all agree with that. So this is our job to support Ukraine right now, to work and support Ukraine to join the NATO, because it's in our interest as well, not only about Ukraine, but it's a regional security question. The gray zones of neutrality positions in the neighboring countries of Russia is just a green light for Putin to continue the aggression or repeat it. So this is clear. Any other speculations, nice to have, but this is the real way to go. And of course, the full membership of NATO, it means as well that we all must be ready to guarantee this Article 5, whatever. So let's do things in the right order. About the Georgian sanctions, as you know that Estonia is a digital country, so I just signed the list of sanctions about 11 persons, including Ivanishvili and also the Minister of Interior. It will go public as well. We are discussing who will be in the list, but it is totally independent decisions of different governments and countries, and there are different procedures as well. So I totally, we are in the same line. It was very important that the three Baltic states and foreign ministers announced that we do it, and the names there, who will put which persons, it's up to the countries. So Estonian list is published. Thank you.
If I may, answering to this second question on Ukraine and NATO, so Lithuania's position was consistent, I think, from 2008, from Budapest summit. And we truly believe that only NATO membership could protect Ukraine. We truly believe that Ukraine deserves this membership. And I would add one more point. Ukraine's membership in NATO would be a great asset to NATO. In NATO Madrid, Vilnius and Washington summit declarations, you you can read article naming Russia as the most significant and direct threat to all NATO allies. Ukraine proved already they know how to fight with this threat. So Ukraine's NATO membership would be a great asset to transatlantic community. With regard to your question on Lithuania's China issue, so I would like first to quote briefly our foreign ministry statement from last Friday. 3 members of Chinese diplomatic mission in Vilnius were asked to leave Lithuania in 1 week because of the incompatibility of the status and activities with the provisions of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, other principles and practices of international law, and Lithuanian legislation. It's an iron rule that foreign diplomats should respect law of the country where they reside. So that was our decision, and what we can expect from Beijing, I don't know. Maybe better ask Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It was not our decision to escalate, and as we reiterated many times, we always have been and remain ready for constructive dialogue with PRC based on mutual respect.
Mums ir laiks vēl pēdējiem jautājumam, lūdzu.
Yes, my name is
We still have question for one. There's still time for one more question.
Effie. As we all know, in a few weeks there will be a new administration in the United States, and it's pretty clear that both the new president and many of his cabinet members are a bit less enthusiastic about helping Ukraine than the people standing up there. And also that we have seen that Donald Trump has threatened economic warfare against both of his neighbors, including Canada. How do you look at what may happen to Ukraine under the new Trump administration, and how do you look at what may happen to NATO?
Many questions in there, and many assumptions as well. One thing we know is that we've dealt with the Trump administration in the past when they were in power between 2016 and 2020. Prime Minister Trudeau had a very productive meeting at Mar-a-Lago on Friday night, which lasted more than 3 hours and which covered many different topics, including trade, including our shared border, but also including Ukraine, the Middle East, and conversations about energy and the Arctic. And we'll continue to engage. Meanwhile, my job has been also to talk to many US senators on the Republican side, on the Democratic side. I've been in close contact with Lindsey Graham and Jim Rich, which are important foreign policy players. And also we've been in contact with many of the upcoming leaders of the Trump administration. I think it is important to remember that President-elect Trump is coming into office in a geopolitical context that is very different from the one of his first administration. And what has happened since Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine is NATO has been strengthened. NATO has been seeing its members investing even more in defense. On the Canadian side, we've done historic investments, and we know we have to do more, and we will do more. And at the same time, that ultimately what is happening, and that was a bit my answer to the previous question, is that there is a clear connection between what is happening in the Indo-Pacific and the tensions between the US and China, and ultimately what is happening in Europe. And I think this is something that the Trump administration is much more attuned to, and we need to continue to engage with them. I also had a positive conversation with the Chief of Staff of Zelensky yesterday, Andrei Yermak, about our support to Ukraine and also NATO members' support to Ukraine. And all of us are heading to NATO later today to make sure that we continue to exchange our views regarding what's coming in the next months.
As far as Latvia is concerned, we have had excellent working relationships with all the US administrations, and we look forward working with the administration of Mr. Trump again. And clearly, both our defense investment, what we contribute to the collective security, the way we support Ukraine, the way we support other countries is something that is value added for the US. US needs friends as much as every other country in the world. So the Russia, China, DPRK, Iran enablement of Russia's war in Ukraine is only one sign of a certain powers aligning in their actions, but we also clearly know that it's China, Russia, and the others that go around the world pitching them as good actors, as positive actors, trying to present them to the global south as some type of benevolent powers, which is not true. When we look at how those powers exploit African and other countries and the way promises are not fulfilled to them, it's very clear. The Russian policy is imperial colonial policy. Its war in Ukraine is like that, and the way other countries actually support that is something that we have tried to uncover and present to the world also in our contacts wherever we are.
Maybe just to add that I was defense minister at the time when Trump first time entered the White House. And I remember lots of speculations before that, what will happen and what will not happen. And I can say that our region gained more security than ever before from US side, boots on the ground, military support, financial support. And I can say in the name of Estonian government that we are not changing anything because we are working together with US. This transatlantic bond is very strong between European Union, Europe as together with US. But what can I see is, of course, the times are different. Times are totally different, and I think that we are in the year of 1938, just before the Munich meeting, if you can remember. But this is not the situation only that Russia is waging the full aggression against Ukraine. This is about the question, what will happen in the world? What will be the rules in the future? Whether we are going to protect the democratic rules and international law. And US definitely plays here the leading role. US position is stronger than the end of 30s, I think. And I've said it publicly as well that President Trump has an opportunity to become the Churchill of our times. Thank you.
Lūdzu.
Very briefly, Lithuania, as other Baltic states, enjoy strategic partnership with the US, and we enjoy very close, very productive cooperation in many important fields like security and defense, economic. We managed to increase our trade with the United States in the last few years, almost 100%. We also have bilateral Lithuania-US Indo-Pacific comprehensive dialogue, so we are going not only to continue but to deepen our cooperation with United States in many fields. Thank you.
Paldies ministriem, paldies mēdī.
Thank you to the ministers, thank you to media. With this, I'd like to close the press conference. Thank you and have a nice day.